Dear Lord, for 19 years now since the death of my friend in the World Trade Center attacks on September 11, 2001, you've been watching over me as I've traveled throughout your world trying to make it a happier place. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for everything. To make the world a happier place, I've made inspiring others my life business and thought that the only way that I could do this was through a hug and a high five. And to that end, I have hugged over 500,000 people, and I thought that I had done enough.
Come on, man.
But the circumstances of 2020 forced me to look even deeper into my actions to get down to the core of what I wanted people to do all along. And that was just simply smile. Smiles are effortless, yet so powerful. Smiles are everywhere, but not nearly enough places in the world. Smiles are necessary, yet so often overlooked. Smiles are what get us through life's challenging moments, rough days, and horrendous years. Each of our smiles is a great gift that we needed more than ever in 2020, so I took it upon myself to design the Smiles with Big Dave tour. A tour where I would drive through the continental 48 states doing good deeds, all in order to create more powerful and precious smiles in the world. Now, many call me foolish for doing this, but between masks, distancing, social constructs, and everything else that happened in 2020, we're as separated as ever, and I didn't see any other way to get people to connect, so I went ahead and planned it all out. I once heard a saying that God protects babies and fools, so as I figured it, I was well beyond covered and began my trip with a massive smile on my face. While driving the very first mile of this trip, my friend Maurice called and said, "Dave, I hope that you find the America that you're looking for." Well, Lord, I am beyond thrilled and so happy to say that after driving 12,000 miles through the continental 48 states, that within each chance exchange I had all over this nation, I did find what I was looking for. Smiles were everywhere, and whether they were masked or not, their abundant power opened up the door to so much more. I saw kinship in the eyes of a Connecticut police officer who was quickly walking through a downpour, but stopped outside of my car and motioned for me to roll down the window, all to yell, "That sure is a happy car you got there, man." There was empathy in the exchange I had with the state trooper who pulled me over, and I said, "What's up, officer? I was just going with the flow of traffic." And he said, "Nah, man, nah, you were dictating the flow of traffic." After an exchange about what I was doing throughout the nation, he elected not to give me a speeding ticket, but told me that I could do a lot more good in the world if I just slowed down a little bit. Afterward, I asked if I could shake his hand, and he looked at me and he said, "It sure would make my day if you did." I found cordiality in the most unlikely places, like late one night in Parham, Nevada, when I spoke with a heavily bearded old guy while we pumped gas. Standing by his car adorned with stickers of a candidate I certainly didn't vote for, we chatted about the miserable drive from Carson City to Las Vegas, and he asked about the signs all over my car. Again, I assumed that there wouldn't be any niceties between us, but there it was, within a fist bump and his words, "You look tired, Big Dave. Maybe you should stop tonight and get some rest. The world really needs what you're doing." In Texas, I went into a barbecue joint expecting just to meet a friend and catch up with him and have some food, but it ended up being enveloped in the tender blanket of a family's warmth when I was speaking with the woman who owned the place with her son. When I told her that she and my mother shared the same name, she immediately grabbed my hand and rubbed it and said, "That makes sense. God's taking care of you by sending you a whole bunch of mothers to look after you. God's got you, baby." In West Virginia, I was not only given a title, but also a mission, and found some perspective in the words of a 97-year-old World War II veteran who fought in Iwo Jima and earned this nation's Medal of Honor. After looking through pictures of me hugging people all over the world, he proclaimed me a peaceful warrior. And since every warrior needs a mission, he said that my mission was to reach home healthy and smiling. That way, Dave, everyone will know what you're doing and how you're living is real. So just get home safe and you will be undeniable. In Montana, I serendipitously stumbled into warmth when a woman texted me days after we met and said that she was having a very rough day because it was the anniversary of her mother's death. And right when she was about to burst into tears, I walked in with a big smile and offered to buy her and her staff dinner. In every state, I did my absolute best to shop at local coffee shops, flower shops, pizza places, eateries, and bookstores. Within these local gems were not only great deals, products, and services, but also great interactions. The people who own and work at these places are your neighbors, your friends, and your family. So shop local. These places really are your community's lifeblood. Throughout North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana, I saw wearied anguish in the teary eyes of COVID unit personnel that I bought meals for. With every other tour that I've done around the world, I've been able to jump right in and offer comfort through an embrace whenever I saw someone crying, so it tore me up to stand 6 feet away and not be able to hug people, so many people, who I thought needed it most. But the director at the Standing Rock Nation Hospital told me to rest easy and that my presence was more than enough, and said Wapila, which means thanks and blessings. In Vermont, I literally read the signs when I took a homeless woman out to dinner who was holding a sign that said, "Any little bit helps." We chatted for a bit after I got her some food, but before driving off, she looked at me and she said, "Even without the food, Big Dave, it really is easy to smile around you." In New Hampshire, I also read the signs when the people there were so skeptical of my intentions that they wouldn't even let me buy gas for them. After extending an offer to at least 5 people and being turned down, I said, well, I know how I'm going to make this state smile, and that's by leaving it. So let that be a lesson to you. Sometimes it just ain't your day. In Arizona, I was fixated by the implicit trust within the eyes of 3 Navajo children who sat with me in my car while their mother dealt with her vehicle that slid off an icy road. It wasn't a big deal for me. I was just doing what I do. Still, in the days that followed, I can't begin to tell you how many parents reached out to me and said, Dave, you must be giving off some amazingly warm energy, because there's no way I would have trusted my kids to be alone in a car with a man while I was stranded on the side of the road. In Minnesota, I reconnected with one of my life's angels when I saw this woman smile. Christina became my advocating angel when she read my email pitch to the Duke Cannon Soap Company about a hug trip I was planning, and she went to the company president and said, even if we don't do this, at least talk to this guy. You'll feel better for it. I know I do. It was her words and her emotions that got the ball rolling, and without her, my summer of hugs in 2017, when I embraced 14,000 people in 77 days, would never have happened. Thank you again, Christina. Really, you are an angel. In Belfouche, South Dakota, I found an inspiriting boost in the eyes of an elderly woman named Velma, who I delivered flowers to and recently lost her daughter to cancer. Now, before I go on, let me say that in 2019, I threw a Valentine's Day hug party at a senior center in Belfouche, South Dakota, because it's the geographic center, or heart, of the United States. And Velma was one of the first people in line to get a hug and a kiss. Though there was still sadness in her eyes, also present was a glint of happiness as she looked up at me and said, I can't believe you drove all the way across the country just to give me some flowers. I even found things when I wasn't looking for them, like when I entered Lincoln, Nebraska with no one to do a good deed for, and a local businesswoman I met shared with me the fact that she lived in a local shelter for a while and with their help was able to turn her whole life around. With tears welling up in her eyes as she described her circumstances, when she was younger, she said, everyone helps the homeless, but I don't think there is much done to help the people who help the homeless. So please do something for the workers there. The happiness that I'm living right now does not happen without them. Now, with tears in my eyes, I just looked at her and said, okay, I got you. It also happened in Chico, California, when a local chef helped me treat an oncologist and his team to lunch. I didn't know anything about this doctor that I was delivering food to, but as soon as I saw that his offices were located in a place called Philadelphia Square, I just smiled to myself, I thought of home, and I thought, this is exactly where I belong. In Texas, I felt a profound sense of grace when a woman who I just met asked me to meet her brother, who she had just picked up from getting chemotherapy treatment so he could get some of my energy. Meeting this gaunt man and shaking his weak, feeble hand moved me to drop to a knee beside him and ask if I could pray with him, to which he said, I'll take all the prayers I can get. After our moment of divinity, I stood up all to hear his sister yell across the parking lot, I knew it! I knew you were a good man. I could just feel it. And all throughout this nation, When I was starving for physical touch, dogs were there. I petted rescue dogs in Florida, one-eyed service dogs in Austin, police dogs in Memphis, rescue dogs in Washington State, blind service dogs in Oregon, and even random dogs that broke off their leashes to run up and play with me. One dog in Bend, Oregon was so cool that I even laid on the floor of a store with him. But of all the dogs I saw, Abby's story was the one that touched me the most. Abby is an old pup with a lot of body tumors and not much time to live. So as people are driving Abby all around the nation for one last hurrah so she can leave her mark, or P, all around the country. Something about this dog's story and smile made me sit in my car and cry, but it also made me smile with delight as I watched Abby waddle around and pee. And all I could think was, leave your mark, girl. It's your world. In Washington State, I discovered that I could grow beyond my own prejudice when I bought 100 pounds of cat food for an animal shelter and even petted a cat. And you know how I can't stand cats. On this trip, I shed tears as I revisited some places I embraced before. Places where the dark heart of man tried to rule the day and extinguish hope for the rest of us. Places like Olathe, Kansas, Virginia Beach, Las Vegas, Oklahoma City, Sutherland Springs, Texas, and a domestic violence shelter in Mobile, Alabama. But after reflecting for a while on the great resilience of the people that I've met around the world, I walked away from these places feeling ever faithful that goodness will always prevail. That said, meet Jordan, a student at Marshall High School in Benton, Kentucky. A few years ago, I hugged Jordan after a school shooting, and afterwards she looked at me and she said, "Who looks after you, Mr. Dave?" She and I have remained in contact ever since, and when I was planning my route, revisiting Benton was a must. So take a good look at Jordan because her spirit, heart, and smile are a great reason why I do what I do, and the world needs a lot more people like her. And in revisiting some of these places, I even found some laughs. Like when I found a free parking spot near the Las Vegas Memorial Garden for the shooting victims. The spot was reserved for patrons of a certain store, so I just figured that I would buy something there later on, but it turned out to be a huge sex toy warehouse. And since I don't have any use for the tons, and I do mean tons of dildos there, I ended up purchasing the employees' lunch. I also revisited some places that are very special to me. Places like the Four Corners Monument, the bridges of Madison County, and the nation's geographic hearts in Belfast, South Dakota, and Lebanon, Kansas. And any magic that I felt there before was still very much present. My story has often been linked with the dreams of Ray Kinsella and the trek of Forrest Gump, so I visited Ray's Field of Dreams in Dyersville, Iowa, and stood in the middle of a Flagstaff intersection that Forrest ran down, only to discover a new cinematic reference may best encapsulate my actions when someone at a Texas gas station was describing me to someone in their car and leaned in the car and said, "Oh, he's just out here like a light-skinned Green Mile or something." Now that is funny. And each night I was humbled as I read the kind words that people wrote on my Big Dave signs. All in all, Lord, this trip was a wonder. I was not only able to create the smiles that I wanted, but even found 7 high fives and 10 hugs. I know. I shouldn't have been hugging during this pandemic. But sometimes I couldn't help myself, like when I was in a bar in Hattiesburg, Mississippi on December 23rd and had a great conversation about life with these guys. When I was leaving, I stood up and hugged one of the guys and kissed him on the top of his head and said, "Merry Christmas." The man immediately grabbed my arm and said, oh my God, thank you. I'm sitting here talking, but I was thinking, how am I going to ask this man for a hug and not have it sound so weird? But you must have known that. And I just looked down at him and I said, nah, man, I didn't know anything. This was all me. I needed a hug. And before I left, 2 other people in the bar said, I want a hug too. Like I said, it just felt so good. On January 5th, my trip officially ended and I began quarantining. But instead of spending the next day sharing uplifting stories of creating smiles around the nation, I sat riveted to the television looking at the horrific events at the Capitol play out. Not even 24 hours removed from this very special opportunity I had to take a drive through 48 states during the holiday season and just bask in the warmth of a nation's smile, I was watching this grotesque ugliness play out at the country's heart. It was a hard adjustment for me to reconcile the America that I was seeing on TV and the America that, make that the world that I know and have lived in. You see, for almost 20 years, I've been on a path that has allowed me to travel throughout 50 states and 42 countries and hug over 500,000 people, from newborns to people as old as 101 years old. I've lived in a world that has seen me where I've been able to hug my way out of speeding tickets and even parking tickets. I've lived in a world that has not only welcomed me everywhere I've traveled to, but has also beckoned me to never ever stop doing what I'm doing. Lord, I am your very, very, very fortunate son that has lived a life that has allowed me to focus on the promise and potential of who we can be, and the view has been absolutely beautiful. The view has been so beautiful, and my life has been so great, that the only way I can see to reconcile the madness that I saw play out at the Capitol is to just keep going. Just keep going and not stop doing my thing until everyone sees the world that I see. So hear me and hear me now. If you're watching this, know that I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you in order to connect and have a conversation. I'm coming for you with a hug and a high five. And I'm coming for you so we can both simply smile and walk away with a common mission of trying to make this world an even happier place. This, I promise you. Amen. Oh, and one more thing. Great things, and I do mean great things, come from Philly. Peace.